At 14:32 on the afternoon of March 14, 1945, Private Carl Webb told Captain Mercer he could break the German siege using the same method he used hunting wild boar in the Tennessee hills alone, at night, with nothing but a pistol. Mercer said that was the most insane thing he'd heard in 3 years of war. Two sergeants laughed. One said a pistol against 150 Germans was suicide. Webb said he knew that, but he'd been hunting 300-pound boar with a pistol in pitch-black Tennessee forest since he was 16. The animal was faster than any German soldier, harder to stop, and it ran straight at you. He'd learned something hunting boar that nobody in this platoon understood. When you're surrounded and outgunned, the only way out is through. Mercer had 30 men trapped in a German-held building with no ammunition resupply, no radio contact, and Germans closing in from 3 sides. He looked at Webb, looked at the pistol on his hip, asked what exactly he had in mind. Webb said he needed the dark 30 minutes, and for everyone to stay quiet. Mercer gave him all 3. What happened between 22 and 22:14 on March 14, 1945, is why the Army started looking very differently at men who hunted alone at night. If you want to see what a Tennessee boar hunter did with a pistol in 14 minutes that 30 soldiers couldn't do in 8 hours, hit the like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Webb. Carl Webb grew up in Polk County, Tennessee. Mountain country, dense forest, steep hollows, the kind of terrain where you could walk 50 yards off a trail and disappear completely. His father ran a small farm on the eastern slopes at the edge of a forest that stretched unbroken for 12 miles into the hills. Wild boar were a problem. European stock released by a hunting preserve decades earlier had gone feral and spread through the southern Appalachians. A mature male weighed 250 to 350 pounds, carried tusks that could tear through a wooden fence post. Aggressive, fast, nearly impossible to track in heavy brush, and no fear of humans. Most farmers called in hunters with dogs and rifles. Webb's father went alone at night with a Colt 1911 pistol. Dogs made too much noise. Rifles were useless in dark forest where the trees were close. The pistol was the right tool. Close range, fast, 1 or 2 shots if you knew where to put them. He started taking Carl at 16. The first lesson was about darkness. Most people were afraid of dark forest and showed it. They moved too carefully, too slowly. They hesitated. The boar could hear that hesitation, could smell the adrenaline that came with fear. His father said you had to move through the dark the same way you move through daylight. Same pace, same confidence, same attention to what your feet told you about the ground. The dark was not the enemy. Hesitation was. The second lesson was about sound. A boar in heavy brush made specific sounds, rooting, breathing, the occasional grunt. You learn to distinguish those sounds from wind in the leaves, from small animals, from settling branches. You identified exactly where the animal was before you closed the distance. You never moved toward a sound you hadn't identified. The third lesson was the hardest. When you found a boar at close range in darkness and it turned toward you, every instinct said run. Running was wrong. Running triggered pursuit. You stood your ground, waited for the animal to commit to its charge direction, stepped aside at the last moment, and put the pistol behind its ear at contact range. 1 shot. If you ran, it caught you. If you stood and waited and moved at the right moment, it died. Carl spent 3 years learning this before his father trusted him to go alone. The first time he was 19. He found a boar by sound in heavy brush, closed the distance in darkness to 8 feet before the animal scented him, held his ground when it charged, stepped left, fired once. The boar dropped 4 feet past where he'd been standing. He walked home, cleaned the pistol, went to bed. His father asked at breakfast how it went. Carl said fine. His father nodded and went back to his eggs. By 22, Carl had killed 14 boar alone at night, never more than 2 shots per animal, once with a single shot at 3 feet in complete darkness. Pure sound and timing. His father said that was the best shot he'd ever heard of. Carl said it wasn't skill, it was just knowing where the animal would be when it committed. Pearl Harbor happened in December 1941. Carl enlisted in February 1942. At pistol qualification, the instructor demonstrated the standard technique, 2-handed grip, square stance, silhouette targets from 15 feet. Carl qualified expert without effort. The instructor asked about his background. Carl said he hunted boar in Tennessee with a pistol. The instructor said that was unusual and moved on. By March 1945, Carl was with Dog Company, 35th Infantry Division, fighting through western Germany. Urban combat, grinding and slow, street by street, building by building. On March 14th, a German counterattack hit from 2 directions simultaneously. 2 squads got cut off and pushed into a large stone warehouse on the corner of the block. Mercer counted his men. 30 Americans inside, Germans outside, on 3 sides. The 4th side covered by a machine gun. No way out. No radio. The radio man had been hit in the first seconds. No resupply coming, because nobody knew where they were. At 14:32, after Mercer had rejected every conventional option, Webb told him about the boar, about the dark, about going alone. The machine gun on the 4th side was the key. Take that out. The 4th side opened up. 30 Americans could move through that opening in darkness before the Germans on the other 3 sides could react. But somebody had to reach the machine gun first, through darkness, alone. Webb said he'd hunted in terrain far denser than a German street. A boar had better senses than any soldier. If he could get within 8 feet of a boar in dark forest without being detected, he could get within grenade range of a machine gun in a dark street. Mercer looked at him for a long moment, then gave him the dark in 30 minutes. At 22, the building was silent. Every American inside had been told. No movement, no noise, nothing. Webb went out a ground floor window on the north side. Colt 1911, 4 grenades, K-bar knife. No rifle. The rifle was wrong for the work. Outside. He lay still for 90 seconds before moving, listening. German voices to the east, 40 feet behind rubble. 2 men talking, not alert. German voices to the west, different position, different conversation. The machine gun to the south, no voices, just the occasional sound of metal. Someone shifting the gun, adjusting the tripod. 2 men, maybe 3 at the gun. He moved along the north wall, staying low, one hand on stone, boots testing the ground before each step. Same pace as daylight, same confidence. The dark was not the enemy. He reached the corner where the north wall met the east wall, turned south into the alley between buildings, 4 feet wide, invisible from 10 feet. He moved to the south end where the gun covered the street. He heard it before he saw it. The ammunition belt shifting when a gunner leaned forward. He stopped, listened. 2 men at the gun, a third slightly behind, and left, 12 feet away. This was the boar at 8 feet. Same moment. Same calculation. Where will they be when they commit? He pulled the pin, held the grenade 3 seconds, and placed it at the corner of the building at the base of the wall. Not through. Placed, stepped back 2 feet. Waited 1 second. The explosion in the narrow street was devastating at that range. The machine gun crew took the full force. Webb was already moving, pistol up before the echo cleared. 1 German down and not moving. A second wounded, raising a weapon. Webb fired once. Second dropped. The third had thrown himself flat and was crawling away. Webb covered the distance in 3 steps, used the K-bar, made no sound. 30 seconds from the grenade to silence. He fired 2 shots into the air toward the East German position, drawing attention there, creating confusion about where the explosion had come from. Then moved back into the alley and worked north. The German voices that had been calm were now urgent, questioning, looking east and south, not north. Not at the alley where Webb was moving. He reached the north window at 22:14, 14 minutes. Mercer was standing on the other side, looked at Webb, looked at the blood on the K-bar, said nothing for a moment, then said the south side just went quiet. Webb said yes. Mercer asked how many. Webb said 3 at the gun. Mercer told the platoon to move now. Dog Company went out the south side at 22. 30 Americans through the exit in 90 seconds, 4 blocks away and behind American lines before the Germans understood what had happened. 0 casualties. Webb participated in 4 more solo night actions before the German surrender. A blocking position on March 19th. A machine gun nest on March 24th. A forward observer position on April 2nd. A sniper position in a ruined church on April 11th. Each one the same method. Darkness, sound, patience, the pistol and the K-bar and the grenades. Each one enabling a company advance that had been stalled. He was never wounded. In the dark he was difficult to locate and almost impossible to hear. You cannot counter a threat you cannot detect. The after-action reports for all 5 actions used similar language. Position approached in darkness. Eliminated at close range. Advance enabled. The language was dry and military, and did not describe what it actually looked like. A man from Polk County moving through German streets the same way he moved through Tennessee forest, using the same patience, the same sound reading, the same last-second timing that 14 Boer had taught him before the war. Webb returned to Polk County in October 1945. Back to the farm, back to the forest. The Boer were still there, still rooting up fields, still breaking fences. Webb still went after them the same way, alone at night with the pistol. He never talked about Germany. When someone asked directly, he said infantry in Europe, came back. He didn't explain what alone at night in a German city had looked like, Because it looked exactly like Alone at Night in Tennessee Forest, and nobody would understand, unless they had done both. In 1979, a military historian found Mercer's report and tracked Webb to Polk County. He was 61, still farming, still hunting. The historian asked about March 14th. Webb said it wasn't complicated. The street was dark. The Germans didn't know what to listen for. He knew exactly what to listen for. The machine gun gave him the information he needed. The sound of the belt shifting, the position of the crew, the third man slightly back and left. He closed the distance the same way he closed on Boar, patiently, then handled it quickly. The historian asked what the hardest part was. Webb said waiting the 90 seconds outside the window at the beginning. Once he was moving, he was fine. The waiting was always the hard part. His father had said the same thing about the forest. Before you moved, you had to be completely still and completely sure. Most people couldn't stand the stillness. They moved before they were ready, and the boar heard them, and they had nothing to show for the night. Webb had learned to stand the stillness. That was the skill. Everything else followed from that. Carl Webb died in 2004 at age 86. His obituary mentioned the farm, his family, and army service in Europe. Not March 14, 1945. Not the machine gun. Not the 14 minutes. Not the 30 Americans who walked out of a surrounded building because one man with a pistol went into the dark first. His son found the Colt 1911 in a drawer in his workshop after he died. Clean, oiled, fully functional. Beside it a box of 45 ACP ammunition, half empty, no note, no explanation. The pistol was the same one he had carried in Germany. He had kept it loaded in that drawer for 59 years. His son donated it to the Tennessee Military Museum in Nashville. The placard mentions his service and Polk County background. It does not explain why a farm pistol ended up in a military museum. But the men who understand dark forest and close range and patience before movement, they stop at that case and they read the placard and they understand without needing the explanation. The dark is not the enemy. Hesitation is. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Drop a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if you've hunted in Tennessee. Tell us if someone in your family served in Germany in 1945. Let us know you're here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for making sure Carl Webb and his father's pistol don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered.